Yo, 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 what is up, my fallopian tuber? Cesario from the barrio, coming back at you with another video for your butt. And today, I'm going to be talking about nostalgia. And I'll tell you why. Um, I watched a BMX video of some older guy who just got back into it, and he's talking about nostalgia. So I guess then the algorithm picked up on that, and then it started showing me some hobby videos, baseball card videos of people talking about nostalgia and the hobby. And and that just got my head thinking about that. I was like, I don't have nostalgia in baseball cards. And and when I got home, I read through the comments. I love reading comments on videos. That's just one thing I've always been into. And there was so many people talking about the nostalgia and how they missed cards and how they just got back into it and how they could relate to this guy talking about baseball card nostalgia and stuff like that. And I couldn't relate, and I almost felt left out. That's weird. Like, I felt left out. Like, oh man, like I can't give my own comments, thoughts about hobby nostalgia because I don't have any. All right, and it's not because I don't love baseball cards. Obviously, I do. I mean, look at my baseball card empire. Um, but so I looked up the definition of a nostalgia, and it kind of said something that something like you miss that brings back old memories. A lot of times, good mixed with bad, and stuff like that. And I was like, well, I don't miss any memories because I never stopped thinking about them because I never stopped collecting cards. It dawned on me, is like, okay, I stopped feeling bad is because to have nostalgia towards something, you have to not experience it for long periods of time, and now you experienced it again, and it brings back those old feelings. Well, I never lost those feelings. I never went through baseball card withdrawals, really, at least not for like just a couple months, but not for years. Like a lot of people stopped collecting when they went into college, when they got a girlfriend, when they got married, when they had kids, whatever. Everybody has, a lot of the people, reading the comments, a lot of people had their reasons for why they stopped collecting baseball cards. But I never did, so it kind of was like a burden that kind of fell off of me, you know what I mean? And I was like, okay, well, now I know why I don't have nostalgia in the hobbies because I never stopped. There was brief periods of times where I had all my cards in storage, but I used to go to the storage like on the weekends, at least every 2 weeks minimum, and just look through my cards. And there was this one guy that I met through like this is like in 94, 95, 96, that I met through the penny saver, and I went to go buy some cards from him. Man, and this dude was in like, I guess at the time in his 40s, 50s maybe, and his mom was super old, and they lived together on their own. And I would go to his house all the time to buy cards. He would just, he gave me his number, and then like every time I get paid, I go over there with $20 and buy a card or two, or sometimes I would buy some incomplete sets. Yeah, man, like this dude was like pretty trippy. Like, you could tell he probably never had a girlfriend in his life, and he lived with his mom. He was a total nerd, but I had the best time with him. I would love going to his house and talking baseball cards, talking baseball. And I remember I would go for months before he finally, when he sold me on buying an incomplete set, and we went into his garage. Man, it was like Burbank Car Show, just shelves and shelves with you know, boxes sticking out of each side in both directions. When you walk down the aisle like a library, it was so that was awesome. But that's a memory I've always thought about. But man, those are the things I think about. And so when it comes to baseball cards, the only like one thing that you would say, the first real memory I have of baseball card collecting was when I bought this guy. And a lot of people heard the story. So this was like in 84, 86. I don't remember what specific year. I'm sure I could look it up and find out, but I don't care. It's my truth. I don't care if anybody believes me, man. It's like, um, but I bought that at an ice cream from an ice cream truck. You know, my cousin bought the last pack, and I was, a youngster and maybe not that young, but I started crying, or the guy could see visibly that I was starting to cry. My eyes were watering. So he told me, "Hey, I got this," and it was in a pack, like in a cellophane pack by itself. And he said, "I have this, but it's $2." And I don't know exactly. I'm almost positive at the end I had like $1 or something, and he gave it to me, anyways. Um, and I remember my cousin just being so jealous, and he wanted it. So that's like my first memory I have of it. But I wouldn't call that nostalgia, because I've always thought it, because I've had this forever. I kept it in my wallet all through high school. I kept it in my wallet till like the 30s, until I got a new wallet, and my wife told me don't put this in my wallet, because like this would imprint on the wallet, and it would start tearing it because of the corners. It would start tearing the wallet. So I just had it on my shelf. So yeah, I didn't miss it. I always had it. So that's not nostalgic. Uh, Something that is nostalgic to me would be like when I bought this, but from the penny store from the same era, like the 94 through 96, somewhere around there. I don't remember exactly what year, but I saw this ad for 3 Star Wars planes, toys. And there's no pictures back then. There was no pictures. Yeah, I'm 50 years old, so this was way before internet, way before pictures. Like you had to pay a lot of extra money to feature a picture, so most people didn't. It would just be a description, and it said 3 Star Wars planes, toys, and it had a small description. And I called the number. You had to call the number and go and meet them somewhere, normally at their house, or in a dark alley. And you know what could happen there? What happens in a dark alley stays in a dark alley. But hey, if you close your eyes, you might enjoy it. And so I called her, and she gave me a description, and I knew right away that one was an X-wing fighter. The other one was the Millennium Falcon, and I really couldn't get what the other one was. I actually thought that she was talking about a TIE fighter. Oh, great to go on my CDs. Thought she was talking about a TIE fighter. One of these that like Darth Vader would sometimes fly, because of the way she kind of described it, and that's just what I pictured, thinking Star Wars in my head. But when I got there, um, it was actually a Millennium Falcon. No, I mean it was actually the TIE fighter, not the. No, it okay. Let me get this right. It was the TIE fight. It was not the TIE fighter. It was the X-wing. It was a Millennium Falcon, and the other one, which I thought was a TIE fighter, was actually the Star Trek Enterprise. It was a Star Trek toy, and that one was actually the best one, because it had lights, it had sounds. It was actually pretty awesome. But when I told her, like, she had 3 for $20, all 3 for $20, and I said, "Hey, this actually isn't from Star Wars." She's like, "Oh, I thought it was. I didn't know." I go, "Yeah, it's from Star Trek." She's like, "Okay, well, just give me 10 for all." And I said, "No, no, no. I'll still give you 20. I'm just like letting you know." I was like, to me, it was still totally, totally worth it. And I give her $20 for all 3. And that buy to me right here is nostalgic. All right, nostalgia. All right, because I didn't have anything Star Wars for like, maybe 20 years. You know, I used to have one of these. All right, and the nostalgia comes from how I got it. So, I mean, some of you guys know the story, and some of you guys may not. But the X-Wing fighter and the Millennium Falcon, the the way I attained those was, this is why it's nostalgia. I'm telling you the nostalgic part of the story. When I was in elementary, like second grade, we had this bully named Jason. He just happened to be the biggest kid in all the second grade. He was just a big, kind of fat dude, like one of the only white people in our school, because our school was like practically 95% Mexican, a couple Asians and a couple white kids. But he was like one of the only white people, and probably the only white person in second grade. No, Michelle. Oh, his sister. She was 1 year younger, and But anyways, he was a bully. He used to beat us all up all the time, and people always, and when you're poor, and you grew up in apartments and stuff. Like, he actually lived in a house, so to us he was like a rich person, even though he wasn't rich. Now that I think about it, that I'm older, but us, like, I had me. My brother was 1 year under me, so I was in the second grade. He was in the first grade. We had these kids that lived right across from our apartment, calling them porchechitos, which means like the porch kids. They're always out on the porch. Man, they were like five kids, and all of them were like second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. And Sammy and his brother, like, so there's you have a lot of kids that are like one grade apart. Kindergarten, first grader, second grader. Me and my brother were first and second grade. You have a lot of kids, so a lot of times, you expect the older brother to defend the younger brother, but like this bully would just beat everybody up. And I was like the biggest kid out of our group. Not that I was big, but I was the biggest kid in our group. But this dude was still, so I ended up getting my ass kicked by this dude a lot of times, trying to defend my friends. But I've told this story before, how like I had just the night before, we watched like the weekend before, like my dad watched like this Bruce Lee marathon. So I was all Bruce Lee'd out, when I got to school, and I was using the urinal in the bathroom, and a kid Jason came in, and walked in behind me, and he just pushed me into the urinal. Nowadays there's just those short urinals, but in elementary, back in the days, the urinals were like from your chest, like all the way to the floor, And he came in and pushed me. He just walked in there, like without even a thought, just pushed me, and my whole front, my pants and my shirt, like, and my pee pee touched the urinal, like ivory or whatever it's made out of, like, and so all first thing I could think of was I jumped up in the air, spinning backwards, and did a like Bruce Lee flying back kick. And man, I just nailed them right. And that's the thing, when I think about it now. I don't think I ever really thought about this stuff, but I tried to jump as high as I could. And I think sometimes when I imagine it in my head, I feel like I jumped so high that I would have kicked his head, but I kicked him right in the belly button. I kicked him in the belly button, jumping as high as I could, and roundhouse kicked him, reverse, in the stomach, and I guess I knocked the wind out of him. Knocked the wind out of his ass, and he fell to the ground. He was like, and and then I got scared. Not that he was dying, so I just took off, ran outside, and this was during recess. So I don't know how your schools were, but at our schools we had rules: no running on the blacktop. You could run on the grass. So I started running, and then I saw a teacher, and I slowed down, and she told me like, "Hey, do you know there's no running?" And so I slowed down, and I walked fast to the grass. And once I got in the grass, I ran to where everybody was playing soccer. All my friends were playing soccer, and I went over and I told them what happened. And I was scared, and but nothing happened. I went back to class, and but then the principal came in and pulled me out of class, and took us to the office, and Jason was in there crying, and I had to tell him what happened. Told him what happened, so I had to wait after school for my dad to come. Oh man, my dad getting pulled out of work early to go pick me up was just not a happy camper. And that's one of those things too, because my dad was always like, you don't let nobody push you around. If somebody punches you, you punch them back. Like, always like tough guy kind of like thing. And now that I actually did it, he was pissed. I guess because the school was involved in this one, and it made him look bad. He got a talking to from the principal. So um, the deal was none of us would get in trouble. None of us would get suspended because they couldn't see whose fault it was. When obviously he started it, but I guess I ended it, which kind of sucks. I just defended myself. Um, they made us become friends. All right, they made us become friends. Was I guess it's not a punishment. Was kind of like rehabilitation. They made us become friends. So I went to his house a couple of times after school. Like I would go to his house, and I had to wait 2 weeks because for punishment, my dad made me. My punishment was that as soon as I got home from school, I had to stay in my room and be on my knees till he got home from work, and then until he told me it was okay to get up. So that was my punishment. So I had to wait 2 weeks, and then I would go hang out at Jason's house. And this dude, he had all the best toys. All right, I was a giant Star Wars fan, and this fool had the Millennium Falcon and the X-wing fighter. Pew 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 pew. All right, so I don't think up until that day, I don't think I had ever stolen anything really. But somehow at that moment, it felt like, eh, if I steal this X-wing fighter from the bully who beats everybody up and never gets punished, who is mean to everybody, is that so wrong? No. So what I did was, okay, he had bars at his house. All right, I had bars at my house. You can look out my window. So if you notice, like the bars, the X-wing fighter, I would release it and put it flat like this. I could throw it out the window. That was the beauty of it, For whatever reason, he didn't have a screen. All right, he didn't have a screen on his window. So while we were playing, I chucked it out between the bars. All right, and then I kind of hurried up and kind of like wanted to get out of there as fast as I can. Told me, hey, I gotta leave, whatever. I left, and when I was walking home, went into the side yard and picked it up and went home. Took it home, put it in my toy box. My parents never asked me, I don't think, or they never found out that I had that stolen. But anyways, the very next day, I go back to his house, and his mom asked me, "Hey, do you know what happened to Jason's X-wing fighter?" And I was like, "No," because Jason walked me out the door, and I said bye to her. So she saw me walk out, and I was just in plain clothes, and I didn't have anything on me. So I think she couldn't help but be forced to believe me, like because she didn't see me. I don't think they could think about how I took it. She couldn't imagine how the hell I took it because they saw me leave and I didn't have anything on me. And I could see it in her face that she didn't believe me, but kind of like she had to, like, well, what's the other explanation? She didn't have one. So same thing, man. Got the Millennium Falcon. Boop! Chucked it out that motherfucking window. Chucked it out between the bars. And this time I kind of waited, and I wasn't in a hurry because I did it first thing when we got there. And it's one of those things where he's like, "Hey, let's play Star Wars," and I'd be like, "No, let's play Smurfs," because he had all kinds of different toys. And then we play Smurfs that whole day after I just chucked the Millennium Falcon out. And same thing after work. I mean, after work, after playtime of my new best friend, uh, I I left. You know, he walked me out. The mom made sure to see me out. And I could tell she was looking me over to see if somehow I stashed the Millennium Falcon. I don't know what she thought. Like, was I going to do keister it, stick it up my ass? Oh! No, obviously not. But same thing. Left, walked around the house, went to the side yard, picked it up, and ran home. Like, ran home this time. And the next time that I went to Jason's house, the mom said like I wasn't allowed back anymore, even though she had no proof that I took it. But man, that memory, that I think about that memory a lot, guys. Sorry I took so long to talk. Probably lost everybody, but that's why when I see the Millennium Falcon, when I see Star Wars, brings back nostalgia, brings back nostalgia of the jacket that I used to have. Because my aunt and uncle were both doctors in the Navy, so they made good money. When they would come from Washington D.C., they were stationed in Maryland their whole life. When they would come down, they always brought me the best presents, and they brought me a badass Star Wars jacket. Remember, like the next year, they bought me the tree of the Ewok, like the whole Ewok toy set, like the tree that went up and down. It was, I mean, they every Christmas I got like the best toys from them. So I wasn't a deprived, even though we were poor. I was not a deprived kid that all had all the best, a lot of the best toys and stuff. You know. But anyways, nostalgia. That's one of my thoughts. I miss. I feel the moments, the tension when when the mom was asking me if I know what happened to her the first time. I remember being nervous. The second time, when she was watching me, I remember kind of feeling scared, like thinking like she can't figure it out, but she knows I'm doing it. And for some reason, I thought she was gonna go to his room and look out the window. So that's why this time I ran and I grabbed it. So I was scared. Like anytime I think about those days, kicking Jason in the gut, being scared, like nostalgia, man, nostalgia. You know that the happy feeling of kicking him in the stomach and him going down, and then almost right away, the feeling of being scared, the feeling of being sad when I was punished for 2 weeks. That's nostalgia. So that's the nostalgia I get from Star Wars. You know, and baseball cards, like I said, I don't really have nostalgia because I've never stopped thinking about it. You know, this Star Wars thing, Star Wars was dead for a long time, so no new movies were coming out till Disney bought them, you know, or a little bit before. So I have that Disney nostalgia of Star Wars that Disney brought back, I guess. And baseball cards. One of the things that does give me nostalgia is a lot of people know this is my baseball card album, my first player collectors that I ever did. So I mean, I player collected Daryl Strawberry. All right. So this I put together. Man, the pages are just gone. I mean, they've seen better days, so they don't work anymore. So I'll just put this on the side right now. But I player collected every card that I could find, just of Daryl Strawberry. All right. And the only reason out of all my cards that I would say this brings back kind of some nostalgia, but not really, is because, you know, I did Daryl Strawberry, did Wade Boggs, and Don Mattingly. All right. And so let me see what the last cards were. Should be like 90. So collecting these cards, if people don't know, all right, I, I got sent to a juvenile jail pretty much, to a camp for a whole year. So I went to camp for a year. So obviously I didn't buy any baseball cards after 1990 when I got sentenced to a year. And then almost right after that, I signed up for the Army and I took off. So this album stops in 1990. Those are the last cards I got. And went to the Army, and then I had them in storage. But for whatever reason, I never thought about continuing that album. You know what I mean? So all my cards stopped like in 1990. Sometimes when I show that album, I'll get a lot of comments like, "Hey, you should continue that. That would be cool." And I think that's the only baseball card nostalgia I really have, and I think that's why I don't do it, because this was my last like kid innocent thing, that's kind of pure. There's no stolen cards in here. I used to steal cards, but not for this album. Not Daryl Strawberry, not Wade Boggs, not Don Mattingly. So there's some nostalgic in that, I guess, because I look at this album maybe once a year. Not like other cards. Like, believe it or not, as many cards as I do have, I do probably a couple times a year will flip through a lot of these cards. When I'm really into set modes and trading, I'll go through all these boxes looking for cards for other people for their sets, that they need. But this is something that I rarely really go through, you know? So that's kind of nostalgic, and I think if I were to ever continue those player runs, the nostalgic part will be gone, you know. And I don't know. So another thing I really do feel nostalgic about is BMX bikes. What am I at? Oh man, I'm at 27 minutes. I've gone way too long. But when I was young, I used to build BMX tracks. We had ATCs, so me and my brother and a couple other people that had ATCs in the neighborhood. There's a lot of empty lots back then. We're talking about the 80s, 90s. There was a lot of empty lots. Now it's hard to find empty lots anywhere in LA County. But back then there was still a lot of empty lots left. So we would take our ATCs and we would ride, and we would carve out tracks, carve out paths. And so what I started doing is building ramps. This was for ATCs at the time. That was what started me building the ramps. And so we would like go put the front brakes on and hit the paddles, and they would make a hole. And then so with the dirt that came out of the hole, you make a ramp out of that, and then the hole is in front of the ramp. So you get more speed because you go into the hole and then out the ramp. So the ramp will be longer because it goes from under the ground and then over the ground. And then I started riding my BMX on those tracks. And but that first big one, that first lot was huge. It was huge, man. Um, so it was a little bit too big for and I wasn't thinking about riding my bike on there. But there were just certain times where like we weren't that rich, so that well off at all. Even so we would a lot of times we couldn't have gas for our ATC. So then I would started taking my bike out there. So then after that, with smaller lots, I will make BMX friendly, I guess, bike tracks. You know, I started making them specifically so it wouldn't be too hard or too long to ride my BMX. BMX sized ramps, because ATC size ramps are a lot bigger and you could go out so much faster. And and you could catch speed faster on a BMX if you don't have a big long run before the ramp. On the turn after the turn or something. You can't get that much speed and that much air. So I can nostalgic about that because every day on my way home, I pass two sites where I built BMX tracks at before when I was younger. So many times, not all the time, obviously. Many times on my drive home, when I pass through those two lots, I think about missing it, being a kid, building the ramps, jumping the ramps, being kicked, having the police stop by because somebody called the cops, and the police, normally they didn't kick us off. They would just tell us that people called and what are we doing and this and that. And, they let us continue and keep the noise down kind of thing. So I think about a lot of those times, man. That so. And if you guys don't know, the house that I rented before where I live now, I build a BMX track in the back. All right, I build a BMX track in the back. So that nostalgia went away for a while, and I was doing it. And then I started making more money, and I bought a house, and now my house has a pool, no, and cement backyard, so no BMX track in the back. So, and now working on my bike, the nostalgia that I'm feeling off my BMX bikes isn't so much when I was younger and riding tracks. It's more just when I was younger and I was collecting bikes. And I only had one bike with a pair of Skyway rims. And those Skyway rims, I think, are majority of the nostalgia that I'm feeling now. Because those are, to me, growing up, rich people rims that I would never have. And when I got out of jail from my year, like in 91, 92, uh, I worked it out, so I was able to get some Skyway rims. And I loved that bike, but when I went to the army, my mom sold it. So that's why I think I have the nostalgia about bikes now. Thinking how, I mean, just riding and, you know, teenager riding and other BMX people going to a bike track, going to a Venice Beach, whatever, with the Skyway rims. A lot of kids envied you. And I remember that envy. Like, look, I remember kids' faces that I've seen only that one time, but the way they looked at me, like, oh, those are bad, you know? So, yeah, man, I don't know. That's my nostalgia video. Oh my god, it's over a half hour. This video's gonna suck, but it was fun. It was fun just talking about this, man. This is therapeutic. It was very therapeutic. Being able to talk about that, some of my shames in life. Shame, shame. How dare you steal those Star Wars toys? How dare you steal all those bikes? Oh well. I grew up believing life wasn't fair. It wasn't fair for me for years. All right, but anyways, love the hobby. Just keep collecting baseball cards forever, I said. Ciao, nostalgia. You want to know something funny? I opened this up for the very first time today. And I thought I was just a giant, box of the regular baseball packs. So I thought I was like, hey, I guess this one has 6 instead of 4 baseball packs on top. And I opened it today for the very first time, and I've had this forever. And no, it's hanger packs. I had no idea. Look at Will Ferrell. But they're hanger packs. I had no idea. That's crazy. I've never opened it. That's what a lot of people compliment me on the discipline I have with these blaster boxes, and it's not something that I've always had. It's something I developed over time is not opening your stuff. But I thought these were packs, and I was wondering how many of these box, if I could open this box, how close I would come to a set. But now I changed my mind because I thought they were packs, and they're not packs. They're hanger packs. So I might end up using them to hang them, but I think that's just too many 92. Anyways, I'm talking too much. Bye. Ciao. Man, it almost feel like making it 35 minutes. Like another example of me rejecting to make the nostalgia go away, like I said about my player run. It's like this Mickey Mantle, man. When I was in junior high and I had metal shop, and then in high school too, I used to polish this one. Okay, this one. I don't get nostalgia from seeing another one of these. This one in particular, there's a lot like them, but this one is mine. This is my nostalgia. I used to shine it all the time. I used to shine it. I would polish it. I used to have it shining like gold. And then like a year or two ago, I said I'm gonna do that again, and I bought like $100 worth of products to do it, and I never did it. Keep it like